Hi everyone, welcome to Yin Yoga for the low back. So today we will be focusing our poses to help bring some relief of tension to the low back, as well as bringing healing to that space as well. You'd want to hopefully have a yoga mat or a comfortable place to practice. And if you have them at home, a blanket and a bolster, or maybe just some pillows and perhaps some yoga blocks as well. So let's get started. Go ahead and find a comfortable position on your mat. This could be a seated position. We'll just take a few moments to ground and begin our practice. So go ahead and find your way to a comfortable seat and close the eyes. Let's take one deep clearing and grounding breath. So a deep inhale in through the nose. Open mouth exhale. And with each breath, just let the body soften and begin to arrive into this space and onto your mat. So letting each breath bring a little more softness into the body. Maybe noticing any areas that you might be feeling some tension. And see if you can already start to let things go. Bringing your awareness to the floor below you, steady and sturdy. Feeling your body fully supported by the ground below. Let the knees just drop away. The hands resting gently on the knees or the thighs. And then bring your awareness to your breath. Start to deepen the breath, slowing it down, lengthening out the inhales and the exhales. And start to bring the breath into the belly. So with the inhales, let the breath move down low. So moving past the chest, feel the belly itself, the sides and the low back expanding outwards with every inhale and softening inwards with every exhale. Just focusing on the sensation here, trying to keep the breath nice and low. Shoulders are soft. Already directing the breath and the intention into that low body and low back. Just take a few more breaths here. One last full inhale. Exhale the breath out. The eyes can slowly open. And we'll begin to set up for our first pose, which is butterfly pose. So you can go ahead and find your props. If you have a blanket, I like to set up my blanket behind me. So by bringing my blanket underneath my seat. So starting to bring it to my seat here. And then right at the edge of my sitting bones. And now I'm going to start to set up my feet. So I haven't set up for the pose completely yet, just trying to prepare for it. You're going to bring your feet together and your knees wide into butterfly pose here. And your feet might be close to your hips, they might look a little further away like this. It's your body, your pose. So wherever you are today, seeing if you can bring your feet and your heels together. And now if you have that blanket, see if you can bring the edge of your sitting bones to the blanket and then take a mindful anterior tilt of the pelvis. So if you imagine the pelvis like a bowl holding water, you're going to want to tip the bowl forward as if you're dumping the water into your lap. And so your sitting bones will kind of roll right off the edge of the blanket, and the back of your seat will be propped up on the blanket. So it's just kind of enhancing that lower back tilt, opening up the hips a little further. And then you can find all the rest of your props. You always want to keep your props handy and somewhere within reach. And so this can look any way. So if you have a bolster, you could start, if your hips and low back are super tight, you might have your bolster all the way up like this, and your head will reach over to the bolster. You could put up some pillows or even grab your blocks and start to make a bridge with the blocks and the bolster. Or you can just bring the bolster down. So whatever is most comfortable for you, you're just going to find all the props you need. And when you're ready, you're going to start with that anterior tilt at the hips. And then with a nice long spine, you're going to start to move forward and tilt forward and forward and forward until you hit that edge in your hips. And then you'll start to round the rest of the body down. So if you're in your bridge with the bolster and blocks, it might look like this. I'm going to move a little deeper, so I'm going to get rid of my blocks. And you can just play with all your props to find whatever's best for you. But again, it's that tilt forward with a nice long spine until you find that edge of sensation. And then start to round the rest of the body forward. And once you're there, you'll slowly start to find stillness. Notice any spaces of tension or holding. And see if you can let everything go. So letting go of any tension in the shoulders. If your head is propped up on your arms, see if you can have the least amount of effort here in the arms and shoulders. Feel the hips opening up. And notice if there's any areas of resistance in this pose. Bringing any softness, see if you can let go of that resistance. And as always in our yin practice, we want to find that sweet spot, that edge of sensation. So we're not in complete passive and comfort. We're finding this edge where it's slightly uncomfortable, but not painful. We can feel either a stretch or a compression. And we want to hold on to that edge, almost directing our breath to that space. So returning back to that deep belly breath. With the inhales, let the breath move down the throat, past the chest, expanding out into the belly, into the sides, into the low back, maybe even into the hips. Exhaling the breath out, feel the belly, the back, soften as the breath leaves. As always, if the body starts to soften in the pose and we start to lose that sensation of the edge, Moving a little deeper into the pose, finding that next edge of sensation, or even the opposite. So if the edge tilts too far over and you feel the body straining or it becomes painful, take a moment and readjust back out and find that sweet spot. And if you readjust, settle back in. Let go of as much holding as possible. And send the belly low. We'll take a few more breaths here in our butterfly pose. Imagine we're creating a little more space in the low back and the hips with every breath. One more deep breath here. Exhale. We'll slowly make our way out of the pose. We'll start by lifting the head first. So just slowly lifting the head up off of your support. Using the arms to help lift the chest and the torso. Reaching behind, so if you had the blanket underneath the hips, taking the blanket out. Sliding any props off to the side, but still within reach. And then slowly, you can lean back a little bit and maybe the hands help guide the knees upward. Placing the feet about hip width apart. Lean back on the hands and just let the knees drop from side to side. So we're just coming out of the pose, doing a little counter pose to release any extra tension or compression. And then we'll move into our next pose. So next pose is caterpillar pose. I'm going to turn to the other direction on my mat. Again, get all your props handy. So caterpillar pose, the legs are going to be long on your mat. And you can do the same thing with the blanket on your seat as an option. All of these are options. So it's whatever is best for you in this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my seat onto my blanket and grab my props a little closer. Legs are extending out in front of me into caterpillar pose. And let go of any tension in the feet. And again, begins with that anterior tilt of the pelvis, letting the sitting bones come up off the blanket. Maybe shaking out the legs a little bit. I like to walk my heels out just to lengthen the hamstrings and calf and then soften the feet. So there should be no holding in the legs here. And then you'll begin by, again, taking that first bend at the hips with a nice long spine, finding that edge of sensation, and then using as many or as little props as you need. So again, it might look like this if your low back is super tight. You might build that bridge, once again, with a block on either side and the bolster on top. Bring the bolster up to the second highest height. That's what I'm going to start out with. So nice long spine. Then once you find that edge at the hamstrings, you can start to round down in the low back, the upper back. And finding that edge wherever you are. Again, if the head is in any way supported by the arms, see if there's any place you can bring softness to the arms, the shoulders. And let's take a deep breath here once you find that edge and you settle into the pose. So inhale. Exhale, feel the body let go into your caterpillar pose. We always want to be as passive as possible in our yin poses. So notice if there's any holding in the feet, any strain in the knees or hamstrings, in the shoulders, the hands, the jaw. And bring softness to the areas that need it. And allow gravity to do all the work here. Just letting the weight of the body sink down and bringing you to that edge of sensation. And first noticing where that edge may be. Is it in the low back? Is it in the hips, or is it more in the hamstrings? Possibly even into the calves, or all of the above. In the yin practice, we're here simply to observe. We're not here to move and change our body structure. We're here to accept it, observe, embrace. And breathe. This may be a little more of an intense pose for some people. So really try to bring the mind to the breath. And we can even bring any ujjayi breath here to keep our focus. So with that ujjayi breath, it's bringing a little constriction to the back of the throat. So it's almost like if we were to fog up a mirror with our breath, that gentle constriction in the back of the throat. But we'll be doing that with both the inhale and the exhale with our lips closed. So you might hear a slight sound. And though we're having an active ujjayi breath here, it's not a forceful breath, but a subtle ujjayi, really to steady the mind. If the body softens, if the edge slips away, those tiny little adjustments to move a little deeper. And once you're there, settle in, let gravity do all the work, and return to your ujjayi breath. Taking a few more moments here, a few more breaths. and preparing to slowly come out of the pose. So it's gently pressing into the hands as we start to lift from the head. The hands can go to the floor and just slowly walk the torso back up, sliding any props off of the legs over to the side. Keep them somewhere handy. And if you have the blanket under your seat, move the blanket off to the side as well. And then just take a gentle lean back with the hands. Shake out the legs. Again, it's that little windshield wiper with the knees. So bringing the feet about hip width apart onto the floor. And just let the knees drop side to side for a few turns. Okay. Our next pose is half dragonfly pose. So I'm going to readjust. This is a side opening pose. So I'm going to start with my right leg. So similar to butterfly pose, I'm going to keep my left leg tucked in. My right leg is going to extend out wide to the side. And here I am going to make that bridge with my blocks on either side of my knees, my right knee, and then find my bolster. Okay. Really going to try to make this open up to the side as much as I can. And then when I think I've got it, and it might take a few moments of adjustment, I'm going to start to move into the pose. So I'm going to start to shift my body kind of at the waist and hips over to my right. And then I'm just going to bring my forearm or my upper arm, elbow to my bolster. And it might look like this. I already feel some tension and some stretch on the side and my low back. You can stay here. You could come down. Any way your body needs to be propped. Option 2, if you wanted to open up into the side body a little more into the lats and the shoulder, you could bring the arm overhead and do this as well. And start to breathe. And imagine moving the breath now into that side body, into the left ribs, into the left hip. So really fanning the breath out to the left side. Exhale the weight of the body down onto that bolster or any support, maybe your pillows. And again, even if your head is supported by the hand, see if there's any places in that arm, in that shoulder, you can bring a little bit of softness. Notice if you were holding the feet up, let the feet relax, the ankles relax. And as you settle into this pose, you really should feel it in that left low back. And so often when people think of stretching their low back, everybody wants to do a forward fold, bringing their hips into flexion and their low back into flexion. But our back and spine move in every direction, in a 360 direction. So yeah, our back flexes. We can do that forward fold, but we actually spend a lot of time in that low flexion, that hip flexion from seated. So we want to open the back in other directions. So in an extension, in a side bend here. Again, bringing the breath out to that left side. Imagine the hips, the ribs flaring out with the inhale. And softening down into the support to the right with the exhales. Moving deeper if the body softens, backing out if this becomes too intense. Always listening and honoring the body. So again, we're observing the body and meeting our body where we are. We're not forcing anything to happen here. And just a few more breaths here, opening up that left side. One more big inhale. Exhale. All right, bring that left arm down. If you brought it overhead, let the head lift up off that right wrist. Maybe some wrist circles here if you felt that compression in the hand. Slowly bring your way up. And we'll just twist to that left side. Twist to the right side. All right, and we're going to take it to the other side. We're just going to move right into the left side body. So if you did the bridge like me, go ahead and set up to the other side or whatever your setup was. Bring it over to the left. So I've got my 2 blocks. I've got my bolster. Square off a little bit more. So this is more of a side opener. And when you're ready, it's kind of that shift sideways, shift it, shift it, shift it. Bring the arm down, the head down. Find that edge. Maybe the right arm, just rest down to your side on the thigh. Option to bring it overhead. Bringing softness where you can. And then find stillness. Observing the sensations. And then mindfully directing the breath out to the right side body. So inhales, fill the right side, the right hip, the right ribs. Exhale, the body softens down to the left. As always, really just letting gravity do as much of the work as possible here. Let the head rest heavy on the hand if that's where it is. Checking in with the body. Notice if there's any areas that are holding that you can let go. Notice the sensation of that edge. Has it softened? Has it increased? Or are you still in that sweet spot? Breath moving out to the side, into the hip. We're not here for too long, so just a few more moments here. If you brought the arm overhead, bringing it down. Slowly lift the head up off the hands. Maybe just circle the hand open and around. Taking an open twist to the right, a twist to the left. All right, and preparing for our next pose, which is Sphinx pose. So I'm going to move my blocks off to the side and slowly bring the legs together. You're going to come onto your belly. Okay. So depending on where your lower back is, we could actually start in baby crocodile. So letting your feet come down to the mat. The feet come a little wide. So maybe the toes are by the outer edges of the mat. Arms are going to come overhead, and you can stack one hand over the other and bringing the forehead down to the hands. Now this is baby crocodile. And depending on what's going on with your low back, this might be plenty of sensation here. And you can stay here if this is your edge. If you want to take it deeper, you're going to lift the head. You'll bring the elbows in and the hands in front of you. And you can just give yourself like a little tug forward to lengthen the low back here. And so this is a little bit more of an active pose as our head is being held up. We're actively holding the head up here. And we're holding the upper body up. So there is some action in the shoulders, in the upper back and neck. And if you wanted to come even deeper, you could bring your bolster or pillows or a blanket underneath the elbows as well and prop yourself up. So you're really deepening. Now we're bringing an extension into the low back. So we've done our flexion in butterfly and caterpillar. We're doing the side opening in the half dragonfly. And now we're working into extension with our Sphinx pose. So feeling the gentle pressure on your low back as it encourages the natural curve of that low back, the lumbar spine. So this little gentle back bend helps to nurture and strengthen the muscles and as well as the bones of the low back. And it also starts to open up the hips, so the front of the hips as well. And when we're sitting all the time, our hip flexors get really tight and shortened, kind of exaggerating that anterior pelvic tilt. So we really want to open up the front of the hips here. And then we'll bring our awareness into the breath. So we'll use an even, balanced breath here. So starting to slow the breath down. Slowly inhale for a count of 4. We'll pause at the top, holding for 2. Exhaling down to the count of 4. And maybe even pausing at the bottom for another count of 2. So inhales and exhales to 4. And the pauses at the top and bottom for 2. A few more breaths here. Returning back to your natural breath once you complete one last cycle, finishing with the exhale. Okay. If you were on a pillow or your bolster, slide that out from under. And slowly lower vertebrae by vertebrae down out of Sphinx into baby crocodile. And we're going to bend our knees here and let the feet slide or fall side to side. So feel that rocking in the low back, releasing a little bit of that tension and compression. Okay, let the feet come down. And now we're just going to turn over. So nice and slow. We're just going to flip over onto our backs. And I am going to, you could bring a bolster over to your right. I'm going to have my blanket handy. We're going to do a twisted root here. So we've done the flexion, the forward folding, we've done the side opening, we've done the extension, and then we're also going to do rotation because our spine also rotates and twists. So this one, we're going to do a twisted root. So we're going to bring our knees up and we're going to cross the right leg or the left leg over the right. And if you can, you might wrap the legs around each other. So you could just do a double knee twist. I'm doing the twisted root. So wrapping my legs around. You can cactus the arms or bring the arms out wide. And you could start by bringing your support over and maybe the knees need to fall down onto a bolster. Or if you don't need the bolster, pillow, blanket, getting rid of that and letting the knees fall over to that right side. Arms open wide. Just let the weight of the left shoulder fall down towards the mat. Maybe the head turns towards the left. Returning to that belly breath. Noticing if the shoulders are holding on to tension here. Take a deep inhale and exhale, let it go. My hands are soft. Even the legs are passively wrapped around one another. There's no holding on with the thighs or the legs or the ankles. We're not here for as long, so just a few more breaths here. All right, we'll slowly bring the knees back up, unravel, and we're going to take it over to the other side. So we're going right over to the left. So wrap the legs in the opposite direction. So before it was left over the right, now we're going to take right leg, wrap it over the left. If you had a blanket or bolster to support you on one side, you can bring it over to the other side. Otherwise, let the knees drop over to the left. Let the weight of the upper body and let gravity move that right shoulder down to the ground or as close as it can get. The arms open wide. You might let the arms just reach out wide, or you could even cactus the arms, whatever you want to do. Maybe the head turns to the right. Letting go of any strain or holding in the back. Breath moves low into the belly, into the low back. And just a few more breaths here. One more deep inhale, fill the belly, fill the back. With an exhale, you're going to roll onto the back. Unravel the legs. Give the knees a little hug into the belly. You can rock side by side or side to side. Maybe some knee circles, low back circles here. One way, circle the other way. And then when you're ready, you're going to make your way into Shavasana. So as much or as little props as you'd like here, fully passive, no holding, no edge. Maybe a bolster under the knees, maybe a blanket for warmth, whatever you'd like. When you're ready, make your way into this final resting pose. Again, embracing gravity, letting the weight of the body melt downwards into that supporting ground below. Letting go of any of those final spaces of holding, of tension. Bring an awareness into the breath and body. No adjustments, just aware. And let's start to waken up the body. So begin with those little movements in the fingers and in the toes, and the wrists and the ankles. We can take one last big stretch. So arms reach overhead, and with an inhale, reach from the fingertips to the toes. Exhale, hug the knees into the chest. And slowly roll onto one side. And press your way up to seated. Keep your eyes closed here. And just sitting up tall. Bring the palms together in front of the heart. We'll take one last clearing breath here. Deep inhale through the nose. Open mouth, exhale. As always, thank you for joining in the practice. Taking a moment of gratitude that you could do this practice for yourself. Hopefully your low back is feeling a little more relaxed. And you can do any of these poses in any order. These are all wonderful, getting the back opening in every single direction. All right, well, thank you for joining.